Congress has recently proposed a ban on TikTok. Now, it's not just a ban on TikTok. There's a bill actually known as the Restrict Act. And of course, banning TikTok would be the main part of it, but it would actually have impacts on other things that would not be so good. Let's go to the details. According to digital rights experts, speaking to Motherboard, that bill, the Restrict Act, contains some insanely broad language that could lead to other apps than TikTok or communication services with connections to foreign countries being banned in the United States. So now, look, I'm going to go through some of the details because there's a little bit of confusion involving this. Now, the Restricting the Emergence of Security Threats That Risk Information and Communications Technology, or Restrict Act, is bipartisan, being led by Senators Mark Warner and John Thune. Under this Restrict Act, the Department of Commerce would identify information and communications technology products that a foreign adversary has any interest in or could pose an unacceptable risk to national security. So now look, is there a legitimate issue when it comes to national security? Sure, yes. Okay. Now, who do they consider in this bill to be a foreign adversary? Well, you're not going to be surprised. China. Cuba. Iran. North Korea. Russia. And, of course,
in Venezuela.
So very, very specific countries that they would ban any communications to. But again, they're saying, well, but it's only stuff that has a risk of national security, right? But wait a minute, what about all the other countries? And by the way, all the other companies that are U.S. based that hoover up our data. I mean, if this is all about collecting personal data about American citizens, and the whole point is to protect American citizens against data being kept by the Chinese Communist Party, I mean, wait. So this data collection for them, not okay. The United States and all these multinational corporations, they can suck up our data all day, is what I'm saying. Oh, as well as the NSA. So they can have all that data. But it's dangerous when it's the Chinese. I see. How about nobody gets our personal data? Wouldn't that be nice? But so here's the thing, right? Again, the point of the bill is to ban these apps or whatever from collecting this personal data. And yet, again, as I mentioned, this ignores Facebook, Twitter, Google, and any American or multinational corporation outside of those countries that I, put on the list here to collect their data. I think that's pretty disturbing. But outside of that, the bill also could have implications not just for these social networks like TikTok, but potentially VPNs. So what do I mean by that? Well, Will Mary Escoto, U.S. policy analyst for digital rights organization Access Now, told Motherboard in an emailed statement that many individuals and organizations, including journalists, activists, and human rights defenders, use VPNs to protect their online activity from surveillance and censorship. Notice in the right wing, a lot of them are like, we got to stop the censorship. We're going to stop being 1984'd. But are completely fine with this bill and banning TikTok. Very strange. Now, the Restrict Act, according to Escoto, would expose these groups to monitoring and potential repression from governments, which would have or could have a chilling effect on free speech and expression. Free speech warriors, where are you? To be fair, I think some of them are speaking out against the Restrict Act. There's right-wingers, crypto bros that are like, hey, this is a disaster, and actually do agree. The statement noted that the insanely broad language could raise serious human and civil rights concerns because it involves such vague terms such as desktop applications, which could again be anything on your desktop, mobile applications, gaming applications, payment applications, and web-based applications. And could also target applicable software that has more than 1 million users in the United States, which again, very, very, very broad. Caitlin Vogus, Deputy Director of the Center for Democracy and Technology's Free Expression Project, also talked to Motherboard in an emailed statement and said that any bill that would allow the U.S. government to ban an online service that facilitates American speech raises First Amendment concerns. In addition, while bills like the Restrict Act may be motivated by legitimate privacy concerns, banning these services with connections to foreign countries would not necessarily help Americans' privacy. So, wait. If the whole point is to protect our privacy from the CCP or Iran, how does this fail to do that? How could this fail to do that? Well, it turns out countries could still obtain data through other means, like purchasing it from private data brokers. So it wouldn't solve the problem, mainly. Which, again, they could actually solve, and I'll get to that point. But one of the chilling effects that it mentioned is the effect on journalism. So, not, allowing people to use VPNs, because there's some pretty stiff penalties for this, where you could get $1 million fine and up to 20 years in prison for, apparently connecting to any sort of foreign adversary. Well, this could also have the possibility of scaring journalists into not using VPNs to bypass censorship regimes, to actually get some of the information, some real journalism out of those countries, perhaps. Citizen journalism might stop that. And wouldn't even stop U.S. citizens' personal data from being collected. So what is the point here of this bill? I think it's a way to help U.S. corporations. Remember, there's nothing in this bill that prevents Facebook, Twitter, or any of the other U.S.-based companies from collecting our personal data. And you know why? It's because they make money off that data. That's it. I mean, look, both Vogus and Escoto said that, hey, instead of banning TikTok and passing this, pretty broad law that, again, while under one administration might actually be used for the way, in the way that they are selling it, but under another administration, perhaps even a more restrictive DeSantis or Trump administration, could, be used in more nefarious ways. Not a good thing. You might want to think about that. But anyway, they added, Vogus and Escoto, if Congress is serious about addressing risks to Americans' privacy, it could accomplish far more by just focusing on efforts on passing privacy legislation like the American Data Privacy and Protection Act. Now, will they? No, because, well, at least as far as I know, because that would hurt U.S. corporations. As I told you before, the way Facebook works, and not just Facebook, but a lot of these social media companies, is that they're not selling a product. We are the product. They take our personal data and they sell it to third parties. And that's how they make money. The more stuff we put into these social media companies, the more information that they take from us, they can sell to ad companies, data brokers, people that would love to know, hey, Sally just clicked on a link for coats. I guess she's looking for a coat. All coat manufacturers, we're going to sell you this data so that you can bombard Sally with ads about a coat that she probably already bought. And that's all she'll see for the next week on her social media feed. If that's restricted, if our privacy is no longer available, our private information is no longer available to these companies, they lose a big chunk of revenue. And so, again, if they cared about that, if Congress did, then they would actually do something to prevent those companies from taking our private personal information. But they don't. They're only targeting China. They're only targeting a Chinese company. Because when it comes down to it, this is about trying to protect US-based corporations. And also, of course, playing into, I guess, the whole us versus China thing that they love to do. So, look, we have corporate donations that are driving a lot of these politicians to support things like this. They also don't know a whole lot about what they're doing when it comes to technology anyway, as some of the recent hearings showed us. So we have the corporate donations, these politicians, and we also have U.S. corporate hegemony. And so that's what's mainly driving this. Unfortunately, again, this is bipartisan. Some of the co-sponsors here are Democrats, Senators Tammy Baldwin, Republican Senator Deb Fischer, Democrat Joe Manchin, Republican Jerry Moran, Michael Bennet, Democrat Dan Sullivan, a Republican, Kirsten Gillibrand, Democrat Suzanne Collins, Republican, and Martin Heinrich, who's a Democrat, and, of course, Republican Mitt Romney. So, and that's just in the Senate. So far as I know, not in the House of Representatives, and if that passes the Senate, we'll see what happens in the House. But I am very concerned that we're going to do a very, again, ill-targeted piece of legislation that's going to have a detrimental effect on information and freedom of speech.